Welcome to the Good Ride, where we got 2 guys, 3 rides, and some thunder thighs. We got Davey Boy here, Beastie over there, and today we're going to talk to you about the Jones Mountain Twin.
It hasn't changed too much over the years. The reason why we're redoing this review is we wanted to do Jones Mountain Twin versus Ultra Mountain Twin versus the Frontier and do a 3-way comparison. And we also wanted to get Davey on it. Jones was nice enough to send a wide Mountain Twin.
Yeah, a little something special for all the big boys out there.
There we go. I rode this in a wide variety of conditions. I mainly used it to compare to the Ultra Mountain Twin and the Frontier. I've gotten many previous models of the Jones Mountain Twin in all kinds of conditions, everything from icy snow to powder.
I rode this board with my Burton Ion boots, Union Force bindings, and I got this out only in springtime conditions. Got it after the powder stopped dumping, and I rode it in everything from like firm, kind of icy, early morning groomers all the way into like slushed out end of the day park and off the summit about Bachelor Slush Fest.
So let's talk sizing. The 157 Jones Mountain Twin, the 157 Ultra Mountain Twin, and the 159 Frontier are my perfect size. I wouldn't go smaller and I wouldn't go bigger.
I rode the 159 wide. I'm 6'4", 235. I got a size 12 boot, and I think if you're on my range of the weight and size, you could size up a little bit from this.
When it comes to shape, this is a directional twin. The nose is a little longer than the tail, but not by much. This has a very centered feel. On reference stance, the Mountain Freestyle reference stance, they have 2 here. It says Freestyle and Free Ride. If you set up on the freestyle stance, it feels very centered, very between the feet, almost like a true twin. It has a camber profile that is camber going past the inserts, early rise, and spoon nose happening at the same time. This camber profile is very forgiving and pretty consistent. Overall though, it's a very stable ride in all conditions. It's very forgiving, incredibly easy to skid a turn, and I think a rider of any level could ride any of these boards. When it comes to flex, this has a pretty medium flex. It's maybe a touch on the medium stiff side of medium, but overall it's pretty good, and it has a nice easy pop to it. It requires a little less effort than the Ultra Mountain Twin. Yeah, you can see this is definitely a notch up. This is medium stiff for sure. And then you look at the Frontier, and this is medium stiff too. This might even be maybe just a touch stiffer or about the same as the Ultra Mountain Twin. All 3 of these boards are not the most dynamic, poppy rides you'll find, but they're definitely not gonna shit the bed when it's time to ollie. They're all easy to butter. The Jones Mountain Twin, obviously by the flex, is the easiest. The Ultra Mountain Twin took me a little more effort, but it's doable. When it comes to buttering, the spoon nose on these can be a little tricky at first. You really have to kind of put your weight on the nose butter or tail butter centered. As you start to butter towards the sides, it engages that spoon and it can slip out a little easier. It takes a little more getting used to, but it's not terrible. And then the Frontier, surprisingly, I felt was probably the most dynamic pop-wise out of all 3 of these boards.
I thought the medium flex of the Jones Mountain Twin really played into the overall on-snow feel for this board, where it allowed it to stay kind of playful and forgiving, and that's what makes it such a good board for people that are learning all the way up to experts.
The Jones Mountain Twin in uneven snow was my favorite in all types of conditions. I think this board, especially in harder micro bumpy snow, was the least cranky.
The medium flex on this board played into the dampness. I thought it did well in the uneven terrain that I started off on.
When it comes to pointing it, yeah, if you want to go fast, the Ultra Mountain Twin is really damp, and so is the Frontier. The Mountain Twin is not as damp and pointy as those, but it's still very competent. Jones boards are just always good with making sure you're okay going fast. They all can handle some modest to excessive mountain speed. And when you're talking base glide, Jones does base glide right. All their boards have very good to exceptional glide, but one thing I really noticed was the difference in glide between the Ultra Mountain Twin and the Mountain Twin. It just really kept its speed better than both of these boards. It really had easy glide when I tried to get through a traverse.
Yeah, I thought the base glide on the Mountain Twin was not quite as fast as the Free Carver. It definitely wasn't any noticeably slow or anything like that though.
And when it comes to edge hold, these all have a mellow, disrupted side cut that grips much better than your average radial side cut or multi-radius side cut. This disruption really helps. The one thing though in hard snow is this spoon nose tech that kind of transitions into the camber profile where the camber ends. It's slightly lifted there. You can feel it be a little washy. It's not so much when you're like one footing and flat basing. It's more when you go into a harder carve, you really press that camber down and you're really engaging into a turn. That's where it can wash out on you a little more. It's not like the Aviator 2.0 that can feel pretty washy right off the bat. This takes a little more effort.
Yeah, the day that I got it out, I didn't really notice the washiness. Groomers are pretty firm, but I didn't notice it.
When it comes to turning, the Jones Mountain Twin is a fun carver, but not an amazing carver. I definitely, out of all three of these boards, I had the most fun on the Frontier. I just felt a little bit more going on turning wise. The Mountain Twin and the Ultra Mountain Twin got a pretty balanced turning radius. It definitely sits maybe a touch on the straight liney side, but you can make all kinds of radius turns here. When it comes to powder, I didn't ride this particular board in powder, but I've ridden many past models in powder. You can set this back and at a 22.75 inch stance width, you can get 1.75 inches back from center of board with both the Mountain Twin and the Ultra Mountain Twin. Now, if you compare that to the Frontier though, with a 22.75 inch stance width, you can get negative 2.375 inches back from center of board. And I really felt that.
Didn't get it in powder, so plead the fifth.
When it comes to switch, the Mountain Twin and Ultra Mountain Twin just kill it either way. They're almost like true twins. You don't even notice a difference when you throw it around. And I really had a good time riding the Mountain Twin and the Ultra Mountain Twin switch. If you want to hit park and pipe, probably the Mountain Twins are a little better, but the Frontier's no slouch either. And all of these are a little on the stiff side of things. If you're gonna jib, get the tweaker. That's a better call.
I took this board through the Peace Park setup we had up on Bachelor. I'm not really riding switch. I'm not doing any spins. I'm just kind of straight airing off of jumps. And I thought this thing was very stable. It was sturdy. I thought the softer flex, like I was saying earlier, played into the dampness of the ride. It also played into the dampness of the landing gear and the tail. When you were landing airs, you could really just lay it down gentle and it kind of just laid the board down without very little impact. The flex of the board kind of absorbed it. I thought going off the natural features off the backside of Mount Bachelor where I had more wind lips and a couple cornices, this board landed really well.
Overall, I think the Jones Mountain Twin has such a consistent feel in almost every condition. It's forgiving, it's versatile. So if you're thinking more mountain freestyle, but you still want to set it back and have a little bit extra directional float in comparison to a lot of mountain freestyle twins out there, the Jones Mountain Twin or the Ultra Mountain Twin could work. If you want a little bit better turning experience, a little bit more of a directional ride, a little bit better float in powder when set all the way back, the Frontier's the call. And lately, I find myself recommending the Frontier more because people seem to be leaning a little bit more towards the directional side of things when it comes to all mountain riding these days.
If you are looking for something to ride switch and the name Twin is what brought you into this review, the Mountain Twin is a good option and the Aviator 2.0 could be a really good option too. Instead of a sex swing, you need like a flex swing where you like, it's like a harness that comes down and you can like just really like lay into it and get it to pop around.